Season 1. The Beginning. In the quiet little town of Charming, California, peace is only an illusion. Beneath the surface, the Sons of Anarchy motorcycle club Redwood Original, better known as SAMCRO, runs the streets. They control the gun trade, they keep drugs out, and they live by a brutal code of loyalty and brotherhood. At the heart of it all is Jax Teller, the club's vice president. Blonde hair, leather cut, and a restless soul. He's the son of John Teller, one of SAMCRO's founding members. But Jax is different. He doesn't just want power, he wants purpose. Everything changes when Jax stumbles upon a manuscript written by his late father. These old words haunt him. It's John Teller's vision for what SAMCRO was meant to be, a club of brotherhood, not crime and bloodshed. But the world Jax knows, the world Clay Morrow runs, couldn't be further from that dream. Clay, the president and Jax's stepfather, is ruthless, violent, and unafraid to get his hands dirty. And then there's Gemma Teller Morrow, Jax's mother, tough, manipulative, and fiercely protective of her family. She keeps the club glued together, but always on her terms. As Jax wrestles with his father's ideals versus Clay's reality, the club faces threats from all sides. The Nordics, rival biker gangs, and law enforcement all push against them. But the real story isn't just the battles outside, it's the cracks forming inside. Tara Knowles, Jax's old flame, returns to Charming as a doctor, bringing back old feelings and shaking Jax's already conflicted life. Then there's Opie Winston, Jax's best friend, who tries to leave the outlaw life behind for his wife Donna and their kids. But walking away from SAMCRO isn't that simple. The season builds tension like a coiled spring. We see gun deals, explosions, fights with rival gangs, and the personal struggles of men who claim brotherhood but often betray one another. And then the tragedy strikes. Clay, desperate to keep his grip on power and paranoid about loyalty, secretly orders a hit on Opie. But the plan goes horribly wrong. Instead of Opie, it's Donna, Opie's wife, who's gunned down in cold blood. That moment changes everything. It's not just a murder, it's the beginning of a storm. Jax is horrified by how far the club will go. Opie is broken, grieving, and doesn't know the truth that it was Clay and Tig who caused his pain. And Gemma, always the manipulator, urges Jax to stand by Clay and keep the family together. Season 1 doesn't end with victory or closure. It ends with betrayal, loss, and the promise that Charming's peace is just smoke and mirrors. For Jax Teller, the path forward is clear but painful. The deeper he rides into it, the harder it will be to ever find his father's dream. Season 2, Power Struggles and Betrayal. If Season 1 cracked open the world of Charming, Season 2 rips the lid right off. The Sons aren't just dealing with rival gangs or gun shipments anymore. This time, an enemy walks right into their backyard, one dressed in suits instead of leather, but far more dangerous. Enter Ethan Zobel and his League of American Nationalists. On the surface, they preach about morality and cleansing the town of undesirable influences. But beneath that mask lies a power-hungry man determined to dismantle SAMCRO's, take over their business, and strip them of everything they've built. The League doesn't come alone. They bring with them Weston, a violent enforcer fueled by blind ideology. Their arrival shifts Charming into a pressure cooker, and for the first time, SAMCRO feels truly outmaneuvered. While Clay tries to respond with the club's trademark violence, Zobel fights with brains, manipulation, and money. He worms his way into Charming's politics, into law enforcement, and slowly squeezes SAMCRO into a corner. But the real heart of this season isn't just business, it's deeply personal. Early on, Gemma is ambushed by Zobel's men in one of the darkest moments of the entire series. They brutally assault her, not to kill her, but to break her, to silence her, and to weaken the club from within. Gemma's pain is unbearable, and yet she chooses not to tell Jax or Clay right away. She fears it will rip the club apart at the wrong moment. That silence eats away at her, but it also fuels her iron will to survive. Meanwhile, Jax and Clay's relationship begins to unravel. The cracks from Season 1 grow wider. Jax, armed with his father's manuscript, questions every choice the club makes, while Clay doubles down on violence and dominance. Their visions clash at every turn. and soon the whole club starts to feel the divide. Lines are drawn. Loyalties shift. And Gemma, who has always been able to control both men, now finds herself desperately trying to hold the family together. Opie's grief over Donna's death deepens, and Clay continues to manipulate the truth, keeping Opie pointed away from him and Tig, but the guilt doesn't vanish. It festers. And in SAMCRO's, guilt eventually turns into blood. The season explodes with betrayals, shootouts, and shifting alliances. By the time the Suns realize how deep Zobel's claws go, the damage is already done. Law enforcement pressure intensifies, trust within the club hits an all-time low, and Jax and Clay are no longer partners. They're rivals under the same roof. And then comes the gut punch of the finale. Cameron Hayes, a member of the Irish Republican group connected to SAMCRO's gun trade, suffers his own devastating loss when his son is killed in the chaos. Broken and vengeful, Cameron lashes out in the worst way possible. He kidnaps Abel, Jax's infant son, and flees with him to Belfast. As the season closes, Jax stands screaming on the docks, helpless, as the boat carrying his son disappears into the distance. The message is clear. Charming's troubles are only the beginning, and Jax's personal nightmare has just begun. Season 3, The Belfast Connection. The season opens with a broken Jax Teller. Abel is gone, snatched away by Cameron Hayes, and nothing else matters. For Jax, the club, the guns, the power, it all fades into background noise compared to the empty crib sitting in his home. That desperation becomes the heartbeat of Season 3. Every move, every choice Jax makes is driven by one goal: getting his son back. But SAMCRO doesn't live in a bubble. Their troubles in Charming only multiply. The feds tighten their grip, rival gangs push back, and alliances start to fray. Agent Stahl, ever the vulture circling overhead, seizes on Jax's desperation. She manipulates, bargains, and weaves her web, knowing that, at his weakest, Jax could be pushed into betraying everything he stands for. While Charming simmers, the trail of Abel pulls the Suns across the ocean. The search leads them to Belfast, Ireland, into the world of the IRA, and a history that feels bigger and older than anything Jax imagined. Here we meet the Irish kings, Father Kellen Ashby and Maureen Ashby, names and faces that reveal the depth of SAMCRO's roots overseas. In Belfast, Jax is confronted not just with danger, but with truths about his father. Maureen Ashby, John Teller's old flame, shows Jax letters written by his father before his death, letters that hint at Clay and Gemma's betrayal, and at John's belief that the club was rotting from within. These letters become a ticking time bomb. If Jax reads them all, everything he knows about his family could collapse. Meanwhile, the hunt for Abel grows more complicated. Father Ashby twists the situation into a cruel dilemma. In order to keep the IRA's power intact, he pushes Jax to consider letting Abel be adopted into another family. It's a moment that shatters Jax. For a brief, painful stretch, he almost convinces himself it might be better for Abel to grow up far away from the chaos of SAMCRO's, but in the end, blood calls to blood, and Jax chooses his son. The season is heavy with betrayals. Jimmy O, the IRA gangster with his own thirst for power, double-crosses both SAMCRO and his own people. His treachery leaves a trail of bodies across Ireland, forcing the Suns to fight a war on foreign soil, while Charming back home spins further out of their control. And then there's Stahl, always lurking. She manipulates the club into cutting deals, pits members against each other, and plays her own game of survival. But this time, her schemes finally catch up to her. In a masterstroke, Jax and the club turn the tables. They trick her, feeding her false information and setting her up for the betrayal she deserves. The season ends with one of the most satisfying moments in the series. Opie, still haunted by Donna's death, delivers the final bullet into Stahl. It's brutal, poetic justice, cold and exact. When the Suns finally return to Charming with Abel, it should feel like a victory. But instead, it feels like the beginning of something even darker. Jax has his son back, but the letters from his father and the knowledge of Clay and Gemma's lies hang like storm clouds on the horizon. Season 3 closes with SAMCRO surviving yet again. But survival has come at a price. For Jax, that price is clarity. He can no longer ignore the truth. The world his father warned about is here, and he's already drowning in it. Season 4, Corruption and Crackdowns. After the bloody chaos in Belfast, Season 4 starts with a clean slate, or at least the illusion of one. The sons walk out of prison, leather cuts back on their shoulders, ready to reclaim Charming. But the town they return to isn't the same place they left behind. A new sheriff, Eli Roosevelt, now patrols the streets, and he's not like the corrupt lawman SAMCRO used to toy with. He's sharp, disciplined, and determined to bring the club down. And standing right behind him is Assistant U.S. Attorney Lincoln Potter, a man whose calculating mind and obsession with destroying the Sons makes him one of their most dangerous enemies yet. From the very first episodes, there's a sense that the walls are closing in. The club's enemies aren't just rival gangs this time. They're the government itself, watching, waiting, and tightening the noose. And while Jax dreams of finally finding a way out, Clay is weaving darker threads than ever before. Clay pushes the club into a deal with a powerful cartel, promising big money and security, but at the cost of dragging SAMCRO deeper into a world of drugs and bloodshed. For Jax, it's everything he doesn't want, the exact opposite of his father's vision. But just as he's ready to walk away with Tara and Abel, he gets pulled back in by the weight of loyalty and betrayal. He knows if he leaves, Clay will destroy the club from the inside. The season's emotional core belongs to Opie and Piney. Piney, one of the club's first 9, grows more disillusioned with Clay's leadership, especially as John Teller's letters begin to surface. These letters, hidden away in Tara's possession, hint at Clay's role in John's death and Gemma's complicity in covering it up. Clay, desperate to protect himself, takes a step that shocks. Even by SAMCRO's standards. He murders Piney in cold blood. That moment changes everything. It strips away the last shreds of Clay's honor and puts him on a collision course with Jax. When Opie finds out what happened to his father, the betrayal is almost too much to bear. His rage builds like a storm, waiting for the right moment to explode. Meanwhile, Tara is pulled deeper into the club's orbit than ever before. Once the outsider, she's now not just Jax's partner, but the guardian of his father's legacy. The letters she holds become a dangerous secret, a weapon that could destroy Clay, but also a burden that could tear her life apart. Lincoln Potter and Sheriff Roosevelt keep pressing, cutting deals, flipping members, and cornering SAMCRO's at every turn. But as clever as they are, the Sons are survivors. They maneuver, they outwit, and in true SAMCRO's fashion, they spill enough blood to keep their empire afloat. The climax of Season 4 is one of the show's most intense. Jax finally steps up as president after years of doubt and hesitation, but it's not a victory, it's a compromise. He takes the gavel not because he wants power, but because he knows if Clay stays in charge, the club will self-destruct. Clay is beaten, exposed, and stripped of authority, but not yet gone. His presence lingers like a cancer, promising that the war within SAMCRO's is far from over. By the end, Jax stands where his father once stood, at the head of the table. But instead of freedom, it feels like a trap. His father's words haunt him. Tara's worried eyes follow him, and the blood on his hands weighs heavy. Season 4 ends not with triumph, but with a chilling truth. Jax Teller is now exactly where he never wanted to be, president of SAMCRO's, chained to the same cycle he swore he'd escape. Season 5, Tragedy and Vengeance. Jax Teller is president now. The gavel's in his hand and the weight of the club rests on his shoulders. But leadership isn't freedom, it's a cage. Every choice he makes pulls him deeper into the life he once dreamed of escaping. And as soon as Season 5 begins, the cost of that leadership comes crashing down. The spark that lights this season's fire is Damon Pope. Pope isn't just another gangster. He's a kingpin with wealth, influence, and an iron grip on the criminal world. When Tig, hot-headed as ever, kills Pope's daughter in a fiery act of vengeance, the consequences are catastrophic. Pope retaliates with precision and cruelty, targeting the Sons where it hurts most. In one of the show's most devastating moments, Opie Winston, Jax's brother in Everything But Blood, is executed in prison as part of Pope's punishment. That scene, brutal and unflinching, rips the heart out of SAMCRO's. Watching Opie step into the line of death, sacrificing himself so his brothers can live, is the kind of wound that never heals. For Jax, it's more than grief. It's a transformation. If Season 4 made him president, Season 5 makes him ruthless. He begins to see power not just as a responsibility, but as a weapon, and he vows to use it. But Pope isn't the only storm in Charming. Nero Padilla enters the picture, a former gang member trying to go straight with his escort business. At first, he seems like an unlikely ally, but he becomes more than that. For Gemma, Nero is a chance at love and redemption. For Jax, he's a partner who can offer guidance in a world where trust is scarce. Nero brings warmth and humanity into the chaos, but even he can't shield the club from the blood on its hands. Meanwhile, Tara is pulled further into the darkness. She's no longer just Jax's love or the mother of his children. She's part of the life now. But as much as she loves Jax, she sees what the club is doing to him and to their future. She begins plotting a way out, clinging to the hope that she and Jax can escape before it consumes them both. Her conflict with Gemma grows sharper, a battle between the woman who raised Jax and the woman who wants to save him. Juice, haunted by his secrets from Season 4, spirals deeper into guilt and paranoia. His betrayal of the club festers like an open wound, and while he remains loyal in his own way, he's already walking a path that will eventually crush him. As the season unfolds, Jax becomes more Machiavellian. He manipulates alliances, sets traps, and begins to embrace the same cold-blooded decisions Clay once made. Speaking of Clay, his empire finally crumbles. Stripped of power, betrayed by his brothers, and abandoned by Gemma, Clay spends the season clinging to survival. But his presence still poisons everything around him, a reminder of what Jax could become. The showdown with Pope is inevitable. Jax plays the long game, using Pope's arrogance against him. In the final stroke, he turns Tig, once doomed to die at Pope's hand, into the instrument of vengeance. Pope ends up dead, his empire shaken, and Tig is spared. It feels like a win, but the victory tastes hollow. Because Season 5 isn't about triumph, it's about loss. Opie's death defines the year, casting a shadow over every decision Jax makes. His presidency no longer feels like destiny, it feels like a sentence. By the finale, Jax is colder, harder, and more dangerous than ever. He's becoming the very thing he once despised, and everyone around him, Tara, Gemma, Nero, can see it happening. Season 5 closes with Charming soaked in blood and betrayal. Jax may have survived Pope, but he's crossed a line. The boy who wanted to honor his father's dream is gone. What remains is a king willing to sacrifice anything, brotherhood, family, even his own soul, to keep his throne. Season 6, The Fall of the Family. By the time Season 6 begins, Jax Teller is no longer the conflicted prince of Charming, he's the king. But his crown is heavy, and every decision he makes pulls him closer to the man he swore he'd never become. The cartel is behind them, Pope is gone, and on the surface, SAMCRO has more power than ever. But in reality, the club is fractured, trust is thin, and the walls are closing in fast. One of the season's first shocks comes through the death of Lee Torik's sister. Torik, a former U.S. Marshal with a twisted sense of justice, enters as the new antagonist. He blames SAMCRO for his sister's death and wages a personal war against the club. His methods are manipulative and sadistic, setting traps designed to force the Sons into destroying themselves. For a while, it looks like he might succeed, but Torik's obsession ultimately consumes him, and his reign of terror ends in blood. Meanwhile, Clay Morrow finally meets his fate. After seasons of scheming, lying, and killing, his sins catch up to him. Jax, once torn about whether to kill the man who raised him, now has no hesitation. In a chillingly quiet scene, Clay is executed by the very men he once led, with Jax pulling the trigger himself. It's a moment years in the making, and while it feels like justice, it also feels like prophecy. Jax is now the executioner, carrying the same darkness that once defined Clay. Juice's downward spiral intensifies. Guilt and paranoia eat away at him, and his loyalty becomes more erratic. He wants to be part of the Brotherhood, but he knows his own lies could destroy him at any second. His torment is painful to watch because it's clear he's not built for this world, but he can't escape it either. And then there's Tara. More than ever, she tries to protect her children from SAMCRO. She wants them far away from the violence, from the cycle of blood and betrayal that Jax can't seem to break. Her desperation pushes her into dangerous territory, forging plans and making moves behind Jax's back. Her relationship with Gemma explodes into open hostility. Where Gemma sees the club as family, Tara sees it as poison. and that war between them is a ticking time bomb. The bomb finally detonates in the finale. After an entire season of maneuvering, of Tara plotting an escape, of Jax trying to balance his love for her with his love for the club, everything shatters in the kitchen of Jax's home. Believing Tara has betrayed SAMCRO, Gemma brutally murders her in one of the most shocking, gut-wrenching moments of the entire series. The attack is savage, intimate, and merciless, Gemma's rage unleashed on the woman her son loved. When Jax returns home, he finds Tara's body. The sight breaks him in a way nothing else ever has. His grief, his guilt, and his fury all collide in silence. The man who has lost brothers, friends, and family now loses the one person who ever offered him a real chance at escape. Season 6 doesn't end with an explosion or a battle. It ends with a body on the kitchen floor and a lie that will destroy everything. Gemma covers her tracks, feeding Jax a false story about who killed Tara. And Jax, blinded by grief, believes it. The cycle of violence his father warned about is complete. Jax Teller has nothing left but revenge, and Season 7 will be his final ride. Season 7, the final ride. The last season of Sons of Anarchy doesn't ease in. It begins drenched in blood and grief. Tara is gone, murdered by Gemma in a fit of rage, and Jax Teller is broken beyond repair. His love, his escape, his hope for a better future. All of it has been ripped away. But Jax doesn't know the truth. Gemma, the woman who killed Tara, feeds him a lie, convincing him that the Chinese are to blame. And Jax, blinded by pain, swallows it whole. From the very start, Season 7 is about vengeance. Jax wages war on the Chinese with a savagery even Clay never showed. He burns their businesses, slaughters their men, and pulls SAMCROs into a spiral of blood that feels unstoppable. His brothers follow him, but unease grows. They see a man not leading, but unraveling. Juice becomes the most tragic figure of the season. Having helped cover up Gemma's crime, he carries the secret like a stone around his neck. Isolated and despised by his brothers, Juice drifts further into despair. His attempts at redemption only dig his grave deeper. By the time he's locked away in prison, Juice knows the truth will eventually come out, and when it does, he accepts his death as payment for his sins. His final moments, quiet and resigned, feel like the end of a man who was never meant for this world. Gemma, meanwhile, spends the season dancing on the edge of her own destruction. She tries to carry the lie, to justify what she did, even convincing herself it was to protect Jax. But the weight of her crime crushes her slowly. The closer Jax gets to the truth, the more frantic Gemma becomes, clinging to Nero for comfort and trying to shield herself from the inevitable. But Charming is a small town, and lies don't last forever. When the truth finally reaches Jax, that his own mother killed Tara, the world stops. The pain is indescribable. His rage and grief mix into something heavier than words. The bond between Jax and Gemma, twisted and toxic as it was, is shattered in an instant. There's only one way it can end. In a hauntingly quiet scene, Jax confronts his mother. And then, with a gun in his hand and tears in his eyes, he kills her. The son ends the life of the woman who shaped him, sealing his fate. From that point forward, Jax is a dead man walking. He knows it, the club knows it, and even his enemies know it. The final episodes become less about winning and more about closure. Jax begins setting his house in order. He ties up loose ends with rival gangs, makes arrangements for his sons to be raised far away from Charming, and ensures SAMCROs will survive without him. His presidency becomes less about power and more about legacy. In the series finale, Jax gathers his brothers for one last meeting. He confesses his sins, admits to his failings, and asks for their trust one final time. They give it to him, not as a leader, but as a brother. He hands the gavel to Chibs, leaving the club in steadier hands. It's a symbolic act, acknowledging that the cycle must continue even without him. The last ride is both literal and poetic. Jax mounts his father's bike, knowing exactly where the road will end. The feds are after him, law enforcement is closing in, and he has no intention of being taken alive. He rides through the California countryside, the wind in his face, peace finally replacing the rage. And then, in one final act of defiance and destiny, Jax embraces his fate. He drives straight into an oncoming truck, ending his life the same way his father once did. The series closes with his blood on the pavement, his club still standing, and his sons safe from the world that destroyed him. Jax Teller's story isn't one of victory, it's one of inevitability. He became the man he fought against. He paid the price for every sin. And in the end, he sacrificed himself so his children could be free of the curse of SAMCRO's. Season 7 isn't just the end of a show, it's the end of a Shakespearean tragedy on two wheels. Brotherhood, love, betrayal, and death, it all comes full circle in one last devastating ride. Conclusion. And that's Sons of Anarchy, a brutal emotional ride about family, loyalty, and the cost of chasing freedom. From Jax's rise to his tragic end, it's a story that lingers long after the credits roll. If you enjoyed this recap, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and don't miss what's coming next. And tell us in the comments, did Jax make the right choice in the end, or should his story have ended differently? We can't wait to hear your thoughts.